morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to another session in the series of Basics and Virology. Basics of Virology. So, today, what we'll be discussing? Today, we'll be focusing ourselves of family of viruses, which is perhaps my favorite family in the viruses, simply because it's the fight that we won. It's the fight that we won. It's the massive fight that we won, and we went from individual to individual in our nation in the planning in the form of a massive vaccination drive in order to eradicate this virus. And continuously, it's been happening. The family is the coronavirus, and the virus which I'm talking about is polio virus. See, that's the the liking part is coming because we were able to mount a beautiful, wonderful, coordinated vaccine response against this particular virus, and that's why it's my favorite. And another aspect of being favorite is because of this particular virus causing havoc in human population, one of the very severe pathogens of human. Uh, we were able to understand this virus, and based on its understanding, we reached different milestones using this virus as a model. Using this virus as a model. So during this course of lecture, you might be seeing all those milestones, and we'll be discussing the complete attributes of this particular Picornaviridi family. Now, see, although I am liking this part because of the polio virus, but it's not the only virus that is present in the family. This particular family contains more than 200 viruses with seven genera, and majority of them are pathogens for humans. Pathogens for humans, like poliovirus, or when we talk about the rhinoviridae, the rhinovirus, the common cold that everyone gets in, right? Then, if we talk about the cattle, we are talking about the foot and mouth disease, or coxsackie virus, which is affecting the cardiovascular system, CVD, or pancreatitis. It is inducing pancreatitis. So that's why the understanding of this particular family is very important. And after understanding, it is also important that how this onset of the disease was is induced by these viruses, and what how we were able to manage the pathogenesis of this particular virus clinically. So the main objective of this complete lecture will be to provide an understanding of the Picornaviridi family, what are the members, and how the complete mechanism of poliovirus is going about when we are talking about their application. And the out based on that particular understanding, by the end of the lecture, you will be able to know the complete structure part, how that structure, the capsid part, is oriented, what is the genome of this particular virus, and how that expression is leading to a coordinated replication cycle. So let us begin with this particular family. See, this is Picornaviridi. Picornaviridi is a RNA virus. It's an RNA virus with a plus sense strain RNA virus. Now, what is plus sense? The plus sense RNA will directly be recognized as mRNA, and it can directly synthesize to protein. It can directly synthesize to protein. So that is the best part of this particular Picornaviridi family. So if you talk about the multiple families that are present in viruses, be it Corona or be it Philo or Rhabdoviridae that we had discussed, or Togaviridae that we had talked about, the retroviruses that we had talked about, this particular Picornaviridae, as you can see in the pictorial representation also, it's one of the smallest. It's one of the smallest, but it contains more than 200 viruses that are present that are currently prevalent worldwide. And majority of these viruses are very severe pathogens to animals and humans. Even if you talk about the animals, that foot and mouth disease, that was the first animal virus that was described in 1898. I'm talking about 1898. Yeah, and then came the polio virus. And why it is important? Because it served as a prime model, as a basic model. It was the first virus that was purified and crystallized, and it was the first virus on which we actually studied the detailed structure. And by adopting that methodology, we went ahead and extrapolated and projected it to different viruses. And then the vaccine, the first inactivated vaccine, that is called as SARS vaccine in 1950s, was based on this particular polio virus. See why? Why it served as a model? Because it was one of the severe pathogens. The polio onset of polio disease, the aberrant or the impairment of CNS function and the paralysis that was induced in the affected individual, that was creating a havoc. So the virologists at that time were more concerned about the treatment of that disease, and thereby they were more focused on managing this particular pathogen called as poliovirus, or of the family of Picornaviridae. See, the virus will get attention once it's a very severe pathogen. Nobody was bothered about coronavirus, or nobody was bothered about the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2. Once MERS and SARS arrived a decade ago, then the coronavirus family came into limelight. And from past 2 years, it's the only family that we are talking about, right? So that is the main case, that depends upon the severity of the disease that is induced by the pathogen, and then only we will be focusing on that pathogen for managing it clinically. And that's why this poliovirus serves as a model, and it was the first inactivated vaccine that was formed against this virus. Not only that, not only that, it was the first virus, it was the first virus, the polio virus was the first virus in the family of Picornaviridae to get sequenced. Out of 200 families, it was the first virus to get sequenced, and it was the first one to form a cDNA clone, of an animal virus in the category of animal virus. It was the first one whose actually cDNA clone was made. So that is the thing that makes this particular family a model family that one should be able to understand clearly. Now, when we are talking about picorna virus, I am talking about picorna. That's how I am pronouncing it, or you can pronounce it as picoRNA viruses. PicoRNA viruses. Now, what is pico? Pico means very small. Small. In fact, in mathematical terms, what is pico? What is picometer? It's -1. So it's very small. RNA means it contains the RNA, and viruses, everybody knows. So it's a small RNA virus. It's a small RNA virus, and I told you it contains single strand positive sense small RNA, and the complete structure is naked. It does not contain any envelope. It contains only the capsid, which is containing the single strand RNA inside it, and that capsid is present in the form of icosahedral symmetry, and the size of the complete virus ranges from 25 to 30 nanometer only. 25 to 30 nanometer only. So that is the thing that we have described. The PICO, P for positive sense, ICO for icosahedral, and RNA for genome. And the name itself suggests everything about this virus. Now, if you see this picture, this is a real-time imaging. This is a simulated imaging of the picorna virus. So what we are showing here, the capsid actually contains 4 different proteins. Although we are showing 3 only, but it contains 4 different proteins. And what are those 4 proteins? They are called as viral protein 1, 2, 3, and 4. Out of this, 1, 2, and 3 will be forming the outermost capsid, whereas the 4 will be present internally in the capsid to form a complete structure. And when we are talking about the complete structure of this particular capsid, the capsid is made up of small capsomeres, as we had understood in the previous lectures also. So this particular virus contains 60 different capsomeres, and how those capsomeres are arranged, how the pentones are formed, and how many pentones are present, that is what we will be determining in terms of the understanding of this particular structure. Now, when I said that picorna viruses are among the smallest, yes, it is true. These are among the smallest pathogens of the vertebrates that is known to us. And not only the smallest, they are responsible for multiple clinical diseases that we are talking about. They are depending upon different factors, whether we are talking about in terms of their specificity towards certain receptors that are present in the cell, or we are talking about their tissue specificity, that they will only target the CNS part, certain viruses will be targeting the respiratory part, or whether we are talking about their mechanism of transmission. Whether we are talking about their mechanism of transmission. So, see, always remember the picornaviruses binds to a receptor and then goes about for the receptor-mediated endocytosis. And this particular interaction between the virus and the receptor is of utmost importance in terms of maintaining their specificity. So, what are the general properties as a family, if I am talking about? See, they will infect, they will bind to the receptor, they will replicate inside the cytoplasm. All of them will be having a plus sense RNA which can directly act as mRNA to synthesize the proteins. And those proteins are what? This virus codes for its own viral polymerase. It codes for RNA dependent RNA polymerase. And the mature viral protein will be generated once there is a proteolytic cleavage. So a polypeptide is formed initially, and in that polypeptide the protease performs the cleavage of the polypeptide to generate active viral proteins. And always remember that this virus never buds off. It lyses the cell in order to come out of the infected cell. So when we are talking about entry inside, I told you it binds to the receptor. So it never fuses with the membrane. Why? What is the reason that never fuses? Why it needs receptor? Simply because it does not contain any envelope outside the capsid. So if there is no lipoproteinaceous envelope, then there is no interaction or no fusing up with the lipid cell membrane of the host. So that's why the proteinaceous code needs to bind to its specific receptor in order to gain entry inside the cell. In order to gain entry inside the cell. So that is the main gist of understanding this particular replication part. That is the main gist of understanding this particular replication part. So when we are talking about the replication part in general of this particular family, how it will happen. See, there is a plus mRNA. You have to understand that there is a plus mRNA. In order to make multiple copies of this particular virus, it requires to make its own copies. We need multiple copies of plus mRNA. Okay, so now RNA dependent RNA polymerase is ready. It will recognize this plus mRNA as template and will synthesize another strand. Now from plus strand, what is synthesized? It A negative strand will always be synthesized. From plus, a plus cannot be synthesized, right? So a complementary strand is synthesized by RNA dependent RNA polymerase, which is called as negative sense. Now what? Negative strand cannot be packaged inside the virus. Cannot be packaged inside the capsid to form a mature virus. It will not go, right? So what will happen now? This negative strand will serve as template to synthesize multiple copies of plus sense mRNA. So you see, initially the virus forms a negative sense RNA, which is serving as a template, and using that template, multiple copies of plus mRNA is formed. Multiple copies of plus mRNA is formed. Now, when this particular RNA is being formed, then which molecule serves as a primer? Then it is the primer is also coded by the viral particle. And what is that? It is called as uridylated peptide primer. It's a kind of a peptide primer. So when we are talking about this particular family, it contains 7 different genera that I told you in the brief preamble that I gave you in the start. It contains 7 different genera. Now in that 7 genera, there are multiple species of this particular virus that we will be talking about, that we can talk about. So the primary genera is enteroviruses affecting the intestinal tract. Why it is important? See, affecting the enteric system, that means it has to pass through stomach, right? And what is there inside the stomach? It is highly acidic. So that means these viruses are acidic resistant. So all the enteric viruses, what we are talking about, whether it is Coxsackie, whether it is enterovirus 70, which is again a pathogenic virus, or we are talking about type 1 poliovirus, which we or again bovine enterovirus, these all are very pathogenic and resistant to the acidic condition. Whereas on the other hand, if we are talking about the rhinoviruses, which is actually a common cold virus, it is very sensitive towards acidity. Acidity. That's why it cannot infect the enteric part. Now, the other genera that we are talking about, whether it is aphthoviruses or whether we are talking about the cardioviruses or COPU or hepatoviruses or the hepatitis A, that is again a severe pathogen against the liver. So all these viruses have been grouped together in a single family called as Picornaviridae, and sequence information is available to us, and based on that, a phylogenetic tree is formed, showcasing their evolutionary relationship, where we see clearly the certain viruses have derived or are very close to each other, whereas the other viruses are originating from the common ancestor, from a common ancestor. Like if I'm talking about Coxsackie B3 and swine vesicular disease, they are almost similar in genetic makeup, whereas there is a separate difference. There is a huge difference between Coxsackie and the poliovirus genetic makeup, and that defines their evolutionary distance. So when we are talking about these, these seven viruses, when we are talking about these seven viruses or these seven genera actually. So among these seven genera, the enteroviruses is one of the highly pathogenic viruses which can induce diseases, and these are the viruses that are responsible for inducing paralysis, the severity of both. The rhinovirus is again a common cold viruses, and there are almost 110 different types that can induce common cold inside the host. Or whether we are talking about the hepatovirus. Hepatovirus contains a very potent pathogen, that is hepatitis A, that causes liver infections. And another important virus, not in terms of humans, but in terms of cattle disease, that was identified in 1898, and still it's one of the very potent pathogen of animal, that is called as aphthovirus. And among that aphthovirus, the disease that we are talking about is foot and mouth disease, and it's very destructive in every cattle. Or as per the prevalence of the epidemiological study, the cattle with the African continent are more, these viruses prevailing more in that particular continent compared to any other place. So this is all about the family part, or the evolutionary part, or understanding that what type of viruses are present in this family. Although we have not covered the complete 200 part, but we have showcased the important highlights of this particular family, and that is the gist of understanding this particular virus. Now, when we are talking about the structure, let us try to understand the structure. When we were studying a brief PML, I told you that the complete structure is of the size of 22 to 30 nanometer, and the core, which is we are talking about, the inside core is actually of 16 nanometer, and inside that core, it is a single strand RNA is present, and that RNA can directly act as mRNA. Now, in order to act as mRNA inside a cell, it needs to be modified. It needs to prevent itself from nucleases. So, what adaptation it has? It contains poly-A tail. It contains the A tail. Fine. And apart from it, it contains a specific protein called as viral protein G, which is bound to the 5' end of this particular single strand positive sense mRNA. Now, let's first talk about the outer capsid. Now, this particular outer capsid is a proteinaceous part. It contains 4 different proteins, that is VP1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, with the labeling part only, you can easily identify that VP4 is present as an internal lining. VP4 is present as an internal lining, whereas the other three are forming the outer unit. The 1, 2, and 3 are forming the outer unit. So this is how the capsid is formed. So if we talk about this particular iteration of the image, then you can see it is very densely packed. It is very densely packed in a form of an icosahedral symmetry that can easily be visualized at the icosahedral symmetry, and total number of capsomeres that are present here. A capsomere is made up of 3 proteins. In this case, a capsomere is a presence of 3 proteins. You can see the triangle, that is a single capsomere. So capsomere, total number of capsomere is 60. In the complete virus, the number of triangles, that is your capsomere, what you will be seeing is total 60. Fine. So, in terms of the complete arrangement, if we talk about, see, there is a pantone. You can see a pantone. It is made up. It's not actually a pantone actually, but the representation, that is made up of 5 different capsomeres, and total of 12 pantones will be covering this particular virus. So 12 multiplied by 5 will be giving you 60. 12 multiplied by 5 will be giving you 60. So this is how the arrangement is there. So that is the thing that how this particular virus is packaging. And when we are talking about a single strand RNA, I told you that it contains the poly-A tail. Now this particular poly-A tail, what is the length? The length of the poly-A tail is 290 nucleus. 90 nucleotides, and at the 5 prime end, is there is a presence of 2 kilodalton specific VPG protein, which is very crucial in terms of gaining stability, and the mRNA is attached to this VPG by a linkage with tyrosine molecule. Now, when we are talking about the genome aspect of this particular Picornaviridae family, see, it is a single strand plus RNA that we already understood, and there are multiple viruses that are single strand plus RNA. It's not the only family, whether we're talking about the Coronaviridae family, which is causing havoc in last 2 years, or we are talking about the Tocaviridae or Flaviridae. All of them contains plus sense single strand RNA, and how they replicate that we understood that from the genome they first make up the early proteins, which is a polymerase enzyme and the other proteins of the early phase, and then it is making up the minus RNA, the complementary strand, which is used as a template to make multiple copies of plus strand, and then the packaging will start. So genome-wise, the configuration when we're talking about in terms of Picornaviridae, it contains plus sense, it has a VPG protein that we understood in the last slide, fine, and all the plus sense RNA contains poly-A tail except flaviviridae. Now, the dependency on the host for this particular application, for this particular application, the dependency is to gain the raw materials. It contains its own enzyme, so it does not require enzyme from the host. Fine. And then for the capping of that mRNA, all these families contain their enzyme except Picornaviridae. Picornaviridae never contains any kind of enzyme for attaching a capping on this mRNA. Why? Because already VPG is binding. VPG will be binding. So as per the genome expression strategies, if you see our Picornaviridae, there is no cap, there is a presence of VPG, and there is also a UTR. Now this untranslated region contains an element called as IRES that we'll be seeing in subsequent slides. IRES. This IRES segment is a secondary structure that is formed in this particular mRNA, and it is responsible for the attachment of host ribosome on this particular viral particle. So that is how, it is directly going and synthesizing the proteins that are required in the early phase. Now, once the protein is formed, it is formed as a polypeptide, and that polypeptide needs to be cleaved by proteases, so that individual proteins can be formed. Now, all the other viruses leads to the formation of subgenomic RNA, but it is never in the case of Picornaviridae. It never forms any kind of subgenomic mRNA. No, it directly gives rise to a negative complementary RNA, which is going and synthesizing the plus mRNA. So that is the unique part that we are talking about in terms of Picornaviridae, or the genomic aspect. So when we are talking about the complete aspect, see, this is the mRNA that I wanted to showcase you. This is the mRNA, or the genome of Picornaviridae family that we are talking about, that we're going to talk about. So there is a poly-A tail at the 3' end. There is a VPG protein, viral protein G at the 5' end, which is actually behaving as a capping of 5' end. So instead of methylating the 5' end, the guanosine methylation, that is not there. Instead, there is a specific protein that is attached at the 5' end called as viral protein G, and the complete length of the genome is from 7.1 to 8.9 kilobase pair, and it contains a single reading frame. It contains a single open reading frame which contains multiple proteins, So there are 11 to 12 different proteins that are coded by this particular RNA. Now, if you see that a polypeptide will be synthesized from this particular single open reading frame, and after this polypeptide is synthesized, it needs to get cleaved. Now, the complete polypeptide broadly can be categorized into 3 different sections, where we are talking about P1, which exclusively is coding for structural proteins, or the capsid 1, 2, 3, 4. Whereas The other section that we are talking about, the P2 and P3, these are non-structural proteins. These are non-structural proteins which are associated with your replication part, They will give rise to polymerase, and this will give rise to proteases, and there is RNA dependent RNA polymerase, right? And if you see closely, then you will be seeing there is a UTR, untranslated region, at 3' end, and there is untranslated region at 5' end. At the 5' end, there is IRES, which is secondary structure again. And this IRES is nothing but internal ribosome entry site, which will allow the direct recognition of the ribosome to this mRNA. The ribosome can directly bind to the mRNA and can channelize the synthesis of polypeptide. Whereas the 3' UTR is very much essential when we will be talking about the replication part. So, in addition to this, if you see, there is all to those proteins. There is another. There is a yellow fragment that we have indicated here that is called as leader peptide or the leader protein. Now, this leader protein is not exclusively present in all the genera, but yes, this is present in certain genera. For example, like aphthoviruses, or arboviruses, where it behaves as proteases, or when we're talking about globoviruses or cardioviruses, where it is having certain other functions that are there, but it's not exclusive. The N-terminal reader sequence is not exclusively present in every virus. No, it is present in certain genera of this particular picornavirus. So when we are talking about the protein processing, polyprotein processing, when the peptide is formed, and we are talking about the enteroviruses or the different genera, so there are different cleavage sites that are present. The length is completely different. So one has to understand. When I said that the journal reach of Picorna viridi is from 7.1 kilobase pairs, 7.1 kilobase pairs to 8.2 kilobase pairs, 7.7 to 8 kilobase pairs. So we are talking about the 7 kilobase pair genome in enteroviruses, and the largest genome is present in globoviruses. And the cleavage size is completely different. So there is a certain difference in the length of the proteins, but there is no difference when we are talking about in terms of RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, or whether we are talking about the procleavage part, or whether we are talking about the section of proteases that will be coded by C3 protein. So, though they share multiple similarities, there are again different specific specificities that can be identified to identify the genera that is within the family. So this this similarities led to the evolution and led to the bifurcation of a same line, and to give rise to two different genera from a common system. And that's how evolution proceeds, right? So let us focus now on your replication part. The replication part, what we are focusing on, will be starting with what? First of all, the virus display. It needs to get attached onto a cell. That is the prime reason that why I have not showcased the complete cycle. Let us go step by step, because this is highly investigated virus, and in every step we need to go in detail. So first step is your attachment. For attachment, you need receptor proteins, right? What are the receptor proteins? What are the receptors that we are talking about for this particular Picornaviridi family? So there are multiple receptors which impart the tissue specificity to these viruses. Like if I'm talking about Coxsackie B virus, it will never attach to any of the receptor, but it will always attach to CAR receptor, that is Coxsackie and adenovirus receptor that we are talking about. When we are talking about the poliovirus, it will always attach to the poliovirus receptor. Whether we are talking about the ICAM receptors, when we are talking about the ICAM1 receptors, the rhinoviruses, the human rhinoviruses, they all attach to this ICAM receptor. ICAM receptor, you might be familiar with this particular nomenclature when you must have studied the immunological part, when we see that the ICAM, that is intracellular adhesion molecule 1, is present on the cell surface. Or whether we are talking about the other viruses of the family which are having this specific receptors present on the membrane. Whether we are talking about the HAV-CR1, that is a specific receptor for hepatitis A virus present on the hepatocytes. So all the viruses all the viruses have their own specific receptor, whether we are talking about the human pathogen or I am talking about the aptovirus, that is foot and mouth disease virus, which have a very specific receptor of alpha B beta 3. So these receptors are imparting the specificity that is required by for this virus to infect a certain tissue type, whether it is any kind of receptor, what we have shown, whether it is LDLR, that is low density lipoprotein low density lipid receptor, which is exploited by HRV, the human rhinovirus minor. So that is the essentiality that one needs to understand, that attachment to the virus is of utmost importance, and this receptor is mediating uh, as a bridge between the virus and your cell entry. So when I'm saying the rhinoviruses binds, when we're talking about this picornavirus, let us talk about an example with taking rhinovirus. How this rhinovirus is utilizing ICAM molecule, the ICAM1 molecule as a receptor. So ICAM1 is again a molecule that is the receptor that is belonging to the immunoglobulin superfamily. As you can see in this particular section, that there are multiple immunoglobulin-like structures which are present here. That folding patterns, these are resembling to the immunoglobulin superfamily. These are the identification mark of that particular family. And this not only in the immune system, but this ICAM1 is present on many tissues, and specifically when we are talking about many tissues, it is present on nasal epithelium. So our epithelial cells which are present in the nasal cavity also contains this particular receptor, and that's why rhinoviruses can directly bind to this receptor, gaining an entry inside our epithelial cells and thereby causes common cold. So it is present in lung epithelium as well as the nasal epithelium. The receptor, the virus will bind to this receptor and will serve as a ligand to this receptor. The surface of under the normal case, what it is happening? Under the normal case, ICAM1, which is present on the surface of the lymphocyte, is will bind to uh, inflammatory ligands, and it will generate the immune response. Whereas in case of rhinovirus, the rhinovirus outer proteins, like which are present on the surface, that is EP1, 2, 3, those are responsible for recognizing this particular receptor and then induces the common cold. Then how the process is going about? How the complete process of attachment is going about? Let us see in this particular image. See, this is your ICAM molecule. This is the cytosolic part. This is the outer part. So there are two domains that we are talking about. That is D2 and D1. There are two domains that we are talking about. That is D2 and D1. Now this D2 and D1 will be attaching to the virus. First of all, will be attaching to the viral protein. And among the viral protein, once it is attaching, there is a formation of a canyon kind of structure. There is a formation of canyon kind of structure, a canyon which is formed to supply the virus inside the cell, And this particular canyon which is formed is actually the site of interaction between the receptor and the virus. Now, when we are talking about the Picornaviridae family, it binds to the ICAM1. Host receptor, and this particular receptor penetrates inside the virus. It penetrates inside the viral canyon. The penetration of this receptor inside the viral canyon will cause a conformational change inside this particular virus. And that conformation change in the capsid of the virus will allow the virus to gain entry. Now there are multiple antibodies that are exploited to inhibit this particular attachment. And how they inhibit? They specifically block the entry of this receptor into this canyon. Now, if you block this particular entry inside this canyon, there is no attachment. And thereby you are completely inhibiting the viral entry. Again, that antibody design came on the basis of our understanding of forming the forming the canyon. So under normal condition, when there is no antibody, this is how it is penetrating, that the N-terminal region of the D1 and D2 are penetrating inside the canyon. Inside the canyon, it is penetrating, and thereby it is changing the conformation of the capsid protein. The hard capsid, densely capped capsid, is now loosened up. It opens up, thereby this gains entry inside the viral protein, and this allows this is actually the permit that is required for a viral entry. So once the attachment is there, now the next phase is what? After attachment, this virus should gain entry inside the host cell, and that entry and uncoating is coming as a part of receptor-mediated endocytosis. Once the endocytosis is performed, then it should fuse with the lysosome. There is no hydrogen efflux. No, it will fuse with the lysosome. This will lower the pH, and the loss of pH will result. The lower pH will result in the loss of your internal capsid protein called as VP4. The moment you lose the internal capsid protein, the integrity is lost, and there is an opening which is provided for the mRNA, that the RNA genome, to gain entry inside the cytoplasm of the host cell, and that's how the RNA is released. So the released RNA, when it enters inside the cytoplasm, see, not all the RNAs are succeeding. Only 1% of the RNA will succeed. Only 1% of the RNA will succeed. So to understand how this uncoating is happening, one should be able to understand how VP4 protein, which is present as an internal barrier, is opening up to give rise to a channel or give rise to a pore, which will cause the transfer of this particular RNA molecule. So in nutshell, if you go look at the broader aspect, then attachment has happened, and after attachment there is receptor mediated endocytosis, and once the receptor mediated endocytosis is performed, then after fusing with the lysosome, there is an opening which is performed. Now this opening is arising because of the conformational change in the VP4. Once the pore is formed, then VPG, that is present at the 5' end, will guide this particular RNA molecule to come out, and this will now behave as a viral genome or a plus strand or mRNA in the cytoplasm to give rise to multiple proteins, and this is how the virus is injecting its RNA molecule. Now, some of the non-enveloped viruses that we are talking about, this is the top example that we are doing. Some of the non-viral enveloped viruses, what they do, they directly inject their RNA genome. They do not go for receptor-mediated endocytosis, right? They do not go for receptor-mediated endocytosis. They directly attach to the surface, and then their conformational change is happening, and pore is created, and then they release their cytoplasmic mRNA. So the icosahedral capsid that is present on the Picona viridi, that is responsible to create a pore, either at a plasma membrane level or either at the endosomal level. At both the cases, the change which is happening is inside the capsid, which is allowing a pore to form, and then it is injecting the RNA molecule. And this conformational change is represented here. See what is happening in case of poliovirus. The moment there is a reduction in the pH, the VP4, which the N terminal of the VP4, which is actually responsible for the integral attachment of VP2 and VP3, the VP4 protein. Now this protein will go for conformational change. First of all, this particular VP4, the VP4 will start getting conformational rearrangements will be happening. So the conformational rearrangement will be happening in such a manner that the VP1 will penetrate inside the membrane. And VP4 will be opening up and spanning the membrane, thereby creating the pore. And VPG will be traveling through to the pore in order to deliver the mRNA to the cytosol. So this is how the complete virus is gaining entry inside the cell. So when we have managed to know that after attachment how the viral particle is gaining entry inside the cell, how the uncoating is happening, next part of our is to understand the replication cycle. So in cytoplasm, when we are talking about the VPG, is now guided and brought this mRNA inside the cytoplasm, then what happens next? The VPG will be removed from this particular viral mRNA. VPG will be removed from the viral RNA. Then the translation process of this mRNA, this plus sense RNA will start. So there is an early phase translation process, right? Now, when we are talking about certain viruses in picornaviridae, whether it is entero, rhino, or aptoviruses, what they are doing, they immediately shut off the cellular dependent translation process. How they shut off? They will inhibit the initiation factor 4G. The initiation factor 4G that is required for translation process in eukaryote, it is cleaved by the protease, by the viral protease. Thereby, it shuts off the uh, cellular dependent translation, on you can say the cellular dependent translation. So what is happening next? Then the replication of viral RNA will be taking place on endoplasmic reticulovesicles, not the host RNA, not the host translation. So it has now, what it has done by utilizing the proteases, it has now cleared the site where it requires to replicate. Then, first of all, a negative sense RNA will be synthesized using this as a template, and a new gene using that negative sense, multiple copies of new genomic RNA will be synthesized, which will be packaged in capsid molecules. Will be packaged in the capsid molecules. Now, when we are talking about polioviruses side by side, so what is the unique part of that VPG? Why it is cleaved? Why it is cleaved and how it is cleaved? That is very important. See, poliovirus, when we are talking about, is linked to a protein called as VPG. Other viruses have the capi. So this VPG protein is a 22 amino acid protein. It's a 22 amino acid protein which is actually associated via phosphodiester bond. Via phosphodiester bond to the mRNA, the poliovirus RNA. Now, this particular bond is actually bond between a tyrosine residue and a uridyl residue. The U of the RNA and the tyrosine of the RNA are forming a phosphodiester bond. So during replication, once the RNA has gained entry inside the cytoplasm, this phosphodiester bond is cleaved. This phosphodiester bond is cleaved, giving rise to 5' phosphate, giving rise to 5' terminal phosphate. And this particular VPG is now released. This particular VPG is now released. So this is how this particular separation of VPG molecule is happening. Now, during replication, when mRNA are produced after the cleavage of this particular phosphodiester bond, and this cleavage is performed by not an viral enzyme. No, it is performed by the host cellular enzyme. It is performed by the host cellular enzyme. After this cleavage, now the plus sense RNA is active. Now it is active, fine, which contains a uridyl phosphate, and then further steps of replication will start, and then the further steps of the replication will start. So, based on that, what we have established till now, we have established that how virus is attaching, we established how it is going inside the cell, and then we have established that how that VPG is getting cleaved. Next phase will be showcasing us that how exactly the replication cycle is going on, how exactly the pathogenesis of the polio occurs, and how CNS impairment sets in. And of course, that is very tough to summarize in a single lecture. So we'll be again meeting in another lecture with picornaviridae in second phase, and there we will further carry on from this particular topic and will summarize the complete replication part, and we'll try to understand in each and every detail like we did here in this particular lecture. So yeah, for the reading, for your curiosity, I provided the reading link. If you want to go in detail with what we have read in this particular lecture, then you should look no further, but you should look to these links that I have provided you. And when we are talking about the MCQs, I always like to impart the MCQ based understanding on our students so that they gain the curiosity, and then what you read as a question always gets remembered rather than going for the test. So when in 1955, who was the one who actually talked about the polio vaccine or proposed the vaccine, where there's a Roosevelt, Stalin, or Salk? You have to pick a correct statement that Stark is inactivated or Sabine is live attenuated, or what you understand by this vaccine. Or look, by the end of both the lectures, we'll be having a very much clear understanding of it. For the very first time, this virus was synthesized in the form of non-living crystal, which was the first virus whose crystal was made in terms of understanding the structure. Then which of them has RNA and DNA both? Whether we are talking about herpes, polio, chickenpox, or leuko. So let me answer this. It's a very favorite question of mine. So RNA and DNA both are present in leucoviruses. And how it is present, how a single viral particles they contain both RNA viruses. It's up to you. I've given you the reading link. Go ahead, ignite the curiosity, and then try to read. Try to read. So this is the main aim of MCQs, that you should touch those aspects which are not associated, which are not deliberated in a certain defined lecture, so that the curiosity will ignite, and you will be able to link the topics. You will be able to link the topics. So with this, uh, students, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your keen understanding of the topic, and with the problems that we will again meet in a subsequent lecture. We will be covering the second phase of the already. Till then, stay safe and wish you a very, very happy learning. Thank you so much.